The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, coming to you cordless, everybody, from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. It's Tuesday night, July 8th, 2025, and this is show number 249, Mark your scorecards, which means tomorrow is 250, and I'll get to that in just a second. This was one of those days where basically I didn't wake up. You ever have those days? It's like I've been dragging. And our guest tonight is Bill Walton. He's a former CEO of Allied Capital. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. He was on the transition team for the 2016 Trump campaign. He knows everybody, knows everything. We taped this afternoon, and that's the reason I brought that up. We taped this afternoon, and yeah, I managed to get my crap together before we did that. Then who know? I don't know. It's like just one of those days. You know how it is. So because of that, now this interview is an hour. And it's great. I gotta admit, he's a fascinating guy. We're not gonna do much after this. I'm gonna save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow's our 250th show. I was thinking about having a big deal about this, but know what? I've actually decided on Thursday, July 31st, it's our 2-year anniversary, and so I think we're gonna pull out all the stops for that. So I decided, we're gonna have Conaway on. He's an old friend. He's great at shooting the shit, as I call it. And Thursday night, Larry Newman is going to be here. So 2 regulars in a row. So I don't know if you've noticed this, if you watch the show in the past, I got about 4 people. Depending on how you want to cut it, 4 guys and 1 woman who come on here regularly, basically once a month. And that was originally literally to fill the guest list out. Now, I'm going to do this, and I don't know if she likes it, but I got a shout out to Kimberly at Publius in Washington, D.C. She's been helping me book this show for the last couple months, and she's been doing fantastic work. So, I've talked about this. We're now booked up a month ahead of time. We have the guests have been absolutely stellar. I can't thank her enough. I mean, it's like this. It's been really, we've moved in a new era here, and apparently, it looks like people notice because our viewership numbers have been going up. So I'm happy about that too. So anyway, a guy named Gary Gallus was supposed to come on Thursday. He's an economist. I love talking to economists because it's the art and science of economics is really fascinating to me anyway. And I think, I've always said the problem is like you, the viewer. I won't say about you. I don't know about you personally, but the vast majority of people in America, we're the most capitalist country in America on the planet. We don't know anything about money. It's really amazing. Anyway, he was supposed to come on Thursday, and he had to cancel at the last minute. So it doesn't matter how much help you have, folks. Doesn't matter how brilliant the help is. And she's been doing brilliant work. I can't tell you how happy I am about this. But still, got to plug a hole. And the thing is, Larry usually comes on the 3rd week of every month, which is next week. And there was no time for him. We had too many guests. So Mr. Gallus canceled, or we rescheduled him, I think, for the 30th. I think it's Wednesday. I think it's the day before our 2-year anniversary. And so I said, Larry, you want to come on? Because otherwise you're not coming on this month at all. And Larry said, sure. So that's good. So Larry's on Thursday. So yeah, I'm gonna keep whatever Gymcast announcements I have and news till tomorrow. It can wait. Mr. Walton and I talked about the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, which is fascinating and in some ways infuriating, and we can talk about that tomorrow too. The basic deal is the Trump administration is for the first time is losing an enormous amount of credibility with their base on this because nobody believes them. Nobody believes that there's no Jeffrey Epstein client list. Nobody believes that there's no videotape of his of him in his cell, all that stuff. And they're saying, no, it's true. And no, he really did kill himself. And guess what? I don't believe it. I don't either. I just don't, you know, yeah, I mean, some of it may be true, and the thing, and I'm going to reiterate this before we start playing the interview right now. What I said to Walton, and Walton agreed with me, is that and a lot of other people. I haven't seen this yet, but Walton said other people are saying this too. That possibly they came to the conclusion that if this stuff was released, it would be so egregious to the federal government. There'd be so many people in Congress involved. It would literally dismantle the workings of the government. That's all. I mean, you think about this. Well, first of all, our elected officials scumbags? Yeah, most of them. A good majority of them are. You know, we know that. So if you had to take a third of Congress out of Congress because of they were having sex with children or something like that, a third of those people, and you did it all at one fell swoop, it would be absolute governmental chaos. So if that's the case, I understand their reasoning, but I don't know. I still think we want to know who's having sex with the kids, don't you? You know, I don't know. It's just odd. Any rate, Bill Walton's coming up here, and I'm going to have some closing remarks when he's done. But otherwise, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, watch this. It's really cool. This guy has as the boomers say, he has it going on. Joining us from his home in Virginia, Bill Walton, former CEO of Allied Capital and the host of the Bill Walton Show. So, Bill, I was telling you, I was going to tell you before we just started here. I had a friend of mine call me up this morning. He was he's in finance, and he knew who you were. He was very impressed I was having you on.
Oh, good.
I'm impressing my friends. You never know what's going to impress your friends, you know?
Well, that's nice to know. It's you never know. In the deal business on Wall Street, you never can be sure what people think.
Yeah. So, all right, tell me about the deal business. That's a great place to start. So, tell me about making deals that what people don't know. What's the average person doesn't know about
the average person doesn't know. I was in the merger and acquisition business. I was in all the businesses: private equity, venture capital, real estate, and in mergers and acquisitions, where you're putting two companies together, it's absolutely easier to make $1 billion deal than it is $100,000 deal.
And why is that?
The reason is you get guys that have got something worth 100,000. They typically aren't very sophisticated. They don't have a good lawyer. They barely have any financial records at all. And so you've got all this stuff, and it's really sort of they're great people. They may know their business, but they don't know finance. You get $1 billion deal, and all of a sudden you've got, a dozen lawyers, and you got accountants, and you've got sophisticated investment bankers, and you can get a large merger done in a weekend, whereas a small, and I did a lot of small deals too. I did small buyouts when I had my own firm, and they're hard, but so anyway, that's something they don't know, and it's and I guess the other thing is I don't know.
Hold on, just a second here.
Yeah, we were bouncing around on the screen.
Yeah, we're bouncing around. That's right. I was going to ask you in 25 words, what's the difference in finance between $100,000 and $1 billion?
in finance, well, I'm not sure. Well, the fees are smaller for $100,000 deal. You'd rather be working on $1 billion deal.
All right, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. I was plowing through your resume this morning, and you've had a lot of leadership positions.
Yeah.
What makes a good leader?
Oh, goodness.
And also, let me preface this. I don't know if you're aware of this. When people ask this has been done over and over again in psychological studies. People are asked to evaluate themselves. they're usually pretty realistic, except for two things: their leadership abilities and their sense of humor. Every single person thinks they're going to be a good leader, and most of them aren't.
Well, I think those two are both. The first thing is being a good leader. You understand it's not about yourself. And as soon as you can get into the idea that people really, no matter who they are, feel like they're working for themselves and not for you, you're starting from the right spot. The second thing is, I'd say a sense of humor is useful, because you get through a lot of situations, stressful and otherwise, where having a leader that doesn't overreact to it, then can see in the humor in a grim situation is probably somebody you want to have in your foxhole leading you. So, I always, one of the things that I always thought about was, I don't know about this image, but people are in the shower in the morning getting ready to come into work. I don't want them thinking about what Bill wants. I want them thinking about what I want to do for my piece of the business today. I want them to have ownership of what they're doing, without thinking about, necessarily pleasing me. I mean, I'd like them to please me, but I want them to be thinking about their job, not me.
You had Arthur Laffer on your show fairly recently.
Yeah, Art's a friend.
Yeah. And this brings me to the whole thing about, like, why are people dissing capitalism all of a sudden? That seems crazy to me. It's
it seems like every conversation I have recently, we all go back to education, and we haven't been teaching civics, and we haven't been teaching about finance and money. We haven't been teaching a lot of the things, and the whole capitalist system depends on good old bourgeois virtues like saving and deferred gratification and that sort of thing, and that's not in style now. And so I think we just got a vast amount of ignorance if people don't understand how and where wealth is created. And the Democrat, well, some of the Republicans as well, they treat the private sector like an ATM machine, and they just sort of expect that it's going to run. And you see that in San Francisco and in particular in Los Angeles with this mayor. What's her name?
Karen Bass.
She's terrible.
Yes,
and
she
she does all this stuff, and it's sort of like she's going to wreck everything, and then she's sort of like she's expecting somebody else to come in and fix it, and run it and make everything work after she's ruined it. And so I don't think they understand that we all got a stake in the system, and we got to work to help keep it going, as opposed to bust it up for our own purposes. So I don't know. It's wild now because people don't understand it, and if enough people don't understand it, we got a real problem. Take a look at New York.
This is going to sound like a rhetorical question, and it probably is. So I'm going to apologize for that ahead of time. But you're talking about our education system. So what really, I guess maybe it isn't even a question. I'm just going to give my opinion here. What really bothers me about the whole thing, regardless of your stance politically about the fact that we're teaching basically radical politics in high school and college, is the fact no one seems to realize, like you said, for every hour we spend talking about politics, there's another hour they're not studying physics or math, and so now we're producing kids in both, not just in high school and college, that literally, for all practical purposes, they don't know anything. It just scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, it's who's the guy? I read Jesse Waters occasionally. He's got this guy Johnny that goes out onto the beach and interviews. Yeah, I think he picks the prettiest girls he can find.
Oh, you don't think so, do you?
The July the 4th edition was pretty good, but they don't know anything.
No, they don't, do they?
No, they don't. It's stunning what they don't know. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's a big problem, and I think that's one of. Well, I don't want to get into policy stuff, but that's one of the things we've got to take back. It's not just sex education. It's getting back. That's what parents want, but they don't. People don't know much.
Yeah, but that's terrible. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm absolutely alarmed. And well, whatever.
Well,
So
I did, you know,
did you work on the Trump campaign or one of them?
did. I did. I worked in 2016. Wasn't in the campaign part. Congress passed a law 25, 30 years ago. I can't remember exactly when. They created a budget for presidential transitions. And what they do is they give you a certain amount of money for each campaign, the R's and the D's, and you can spend it on developing, plans for the government for when you win the election. Now, obviously,
I'm losing you, Bill.
What's that?
I'm losing you there. I didn't catch what you said there after the thing about the budget for the presidential transition.
Okay, let's start that one over. There's a budget of several millions of dollars to bring people in to rent office space, to start writing plans and developing personnel strategies for the presidency if they win. And I ran, it's called the transition team, and I was responsible for putting together plans for all the financial agencies, the Commerce Department and Treasury and Internal Revenue Service, and a lot of the alphabet agencies, like the SEC and the FCC and FTC. I mean, there's so many three-letter alphabet agencies, you lose your mind. But anyway, yeah, I oversaw the plans for all those, and that was a lot of fun. It was very interesting.
Shall I assume you know Mr. Trump personally?
I've met him a lot. I mean, I've been in the room with him a lot. Shook hands, chatted with him. I first met him at a Tea Party rally in 2015 when he was not. I don't think he'd even quite announced his presidency, but we were protesting the Iran deal, and at the time I was chairman of the Tea Party Patriots, and we were there giving speeches, and I gave the kickoff, and he was like fifth in line to talk, and we were standing off stage. It was about 100-degree day, and I went up and introduced myself, and it turned out that I'd done a deal with him when I was a baby banker, a hotel in Atlantic City, and I was the banker of Jay Pritzker, who was a really good guy, the governor of Illinois. I don't know where he came from, but Jay was a good guy. Jay and Donald were friends, and so I told him I knew Jay from a past life, or knew Donald from a past life. And in the middle of 10 or 15,000 people, there are people around, he immediately launched into, it wasn't terrible the way Jay died. Didn't you feel so badly for him? And what happened was Jay, who had like 190 IQ, had a stroke, and he lost his short-term memory. And it was terrible because you had a guy that was just a real vibrant guy that was out, and we didn't talk politics, we didn't talk about anything except his personal relationship with Jay and some things like that. And unlike most,
Bill, this is the father of the current governor of Illinois. Is this who this is?
Uncle.
Okay.
Uncle. Yeah, he's the son of one of Jay's brothers who died of a heart attack. And anyway, Jay and Donald and I were talking about this personal relationship and how I knew him and so on and so forth. And he spent his time talking with me, and there are all kinds of reporters around and photographers and things like that. And we finished the conversation. He went up to his speech, and he did his Trump thing. Very different guy from the guy I was talking to backstage, and I just liked him because he was listening. And we had a real conversation about somebody we both liked, and it was, he didn't exactly remember me, but I thought that, I said, this guy seems okay. You can tell a lot about somebody in a one-on-one if they don't know you.
Yeah.
Most people in Washington, if they don't think you're important, they don't want to have much to do with you.
Right.
They're looking right past you for the next person to talk to.
I'm going to run a theory by you, and I certainly hope I'm not insulting present company, but it seems to me that nobody, you would be the exception to this, but no one in America of any real accomplishment wants to go into politics. because it's like it's a hornet's nest.
I totally get that. After working in the transition, I didn't, I was offered, they wanted me to come to work in the administration, and they didn't court me very hard because I said, I don't want to go to work in the government. And, that was true in this most recent administration as well. And it's thankless. I mean, and unfortunately you attract a lot of people who want the title and the power, but don't necessarily want to accomplish anything.
Right.
They like walking around the rest of their life with honorable in front of their name so that they can, they can be important. And so for an awful lot of people, it's the trappings, not the accomplishment. Right. I think that was the big problem with Elon Musk, is that if you ever saw anybody who was focused on accomplishing stuff and getting things done, that was, that's him. And I'm surprised almost he lasted as long as he did.
So what do you think about that whole Doge thing? I mean, do you think he was too impatient? I mean, the argument could be made that, at least they made a start. I understand Mr. Trump's a lot of people he has to assuage, and I don't know if you can make a change overnight, even though on the other hand we're $37 trillion in debt and going broke. So and what do you think? Where are you on that?
Well, where I am is that I think Musk found a lot of things that are absolutely need to be fixed, and a lot of money that was being spent that shouldn't be spent, and he was absolutely spot on in terms of analysis. But
yeah, I'm sure he is. But is he naive in terms of that's
yeah I think so. And the thing is, this reconciliation bill that we just passed, the one big beautiful bill. Well, the reconciliation, they do it because they can pass something with 50 votes, and you don't need 60 votes and for all these arcane reasons that you don't need to get into. But there's a reason they do it that way, and that also means, though, that there's a lot of stuff that you can't put in the bill because it gets, and that's what the Senate parliamentarian was doing, was tossing stuff out because it didn't fit. And most of the stuff that Doge found doesn't fit in the reconciliation bill. And for some reason, they got their wires crossed because, I mean, most of us knew that we'll get the reconciliation bill done, we'll keep the tax cuts permanent, and we'll do some cuts to Medicaid, and we'll make sure the border stays closed. We'll get the big things done, but there's a lot of stuff that we got to do in subsequent bills and subsequent actions, and some stuff like that. And for some reason, Elon didn't get that message, and he thought it was all going to happen in reconciliation. So yeah, that was uninformed and naive, and I think he could have been managed a lot better. I think somebody could have said, "Look, we've got this bill coming down the railroad track, and you're not going to like it, but remember all the stuff that you came across and we want to fix. We can do that afterwards. Let's just get this done." And so I think there was a mismatch of his expectations versus reality.
I was reading something your publicist put out about China, and as a transition here, let me just mention this. The thing that the communists have over us, and they know it, is the fact that democracy is very messy and very slow, just like you just pointed out, whereas they can turn on a dime. And I think, like you talking about China and Xi Jinping, I think he thinks, well, okay, I think they're realistic about their actual shortcomings and the fact their culture doesn't promote innovation or any independent thinking. But they say, okay, maybe the Americans got us on that. But we can turn this whole ship around in like 2 days, and it takes them forever to do anything. And so I wonder if that, in their mind, if that justifies their approach, or you know what I'm talking about here? Or?
I do, and we've also got an incredibly open system that's easily exploited, and even things like the latest rumor is that the Chinese were funding the climate change lobby because their theory is that the green energy, wind and solar, really doesn't work in terms of what we need to power the whole system. So if they can get us on an energy system that doesn't work, Oh, by the way, they're building a coal plant every week.
That's
maybe-
right. They
maybe
are.
two. And then the other thing was they were funding their customers because they make all that stuff in China, so they're going to benefit enormously from people buying wind and solar stuff from them. So and that's not as much turning on a dime. It's more kind of they can get focused and take a long-term perspective. If you're an individual company trying to be, you would never look at it that way.
Yeah, so there's just a thing in the news this morning about the TikTok sale. About apparently, it appears that's going to go through. That the president isn't. He says he knows the people who are going to buy it, but he won't release the names yet. He won't release who they are. But it appears that ByteDance, the company that runs TikTok, is already preparing a separate app to. Technologically, this transition is very, very tricky. I don't know if I have to. You probably know that. I mean, and I didn't realize this. There's 170 million people in America. Half the population of the United States is on TikTok. By the way, have you been on it? Have you ever seen it?
Oh yeah,
it's appalling.
well, parts of it are. I mean, if you're working, I'm a golfer and a tennis player, and there are a lot of great instruction videos there.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of very dubious stuff. It's all over the place. I mean,
I'm such an old coot. I have to tell you, it astonishes me what people consider entertainment. But whatever, it's like okay, fine,
Well, yeah, I mean those 30-second clips that you just kind of watch, and then the next one comes up, and you kind of watch that, sort of interesting, and then the next one comes up.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, 3 days later, you got a beard, and wait, I got to get a life.
Chicken bones all over the couch. Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely believable. Yeah, but I have to
program. That's programmed for that. It's programmed. Yeah. I mean, we're like goldfish. We're like guppies.
Right.
I'm subject to it as much as anybody.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I get sucked in just the same here. And I have to give them credit. They did it really, really well. I mean, the American companies, you got your Facebook and stuff, have all been in this, and then this company comes along, and they really, really. I mean, if you're on TikTok, you really get why people are on there. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. But I had a point here. Now I have to figure out what it was.
Would you use TikTok at all for anything like working on your backhand or stuff?
No. Well, here's the deal. I've been working. I really, really decided I have to put the show on TikTok, and I thought this for the longest time. So I've been on TikTok and working on it now, and we're kind of coming up with that. That's kind of. This show's usually about 90 minutes long, 90 minutes to 2 hours, and you can't broadcast live on TikTok for more than an hour. So I thought, well, screw it. We'll just do the first hour, and if it cuts out, it cuts out, and then a bunch of shorts. So I just decided I have to be there. That's all there is to it. It's terrible.
Well, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you got to be, I do believe that if you put some bright techies involved in taking a look at what the piece of TikTok is that stays in this country, we could take out a lot of the bad stuff that is concerning, and it should be concerning. Because, for example, the Chinese, they've got their own version of TikTok, and it's like a civics course. They're just,
Yeah, no, it is. No, you're right. You're right. And the American people don't realize that. It's way different. Their version is way different than ours.
President Xi is a great man, close to a god, and they're really, they use it very differently. And so it can be done. I mean, if you just one of the interesting things about what Musk has done is he's brought a lot of the tech community into Washington, and that's a breath of fresh air. So I know if we put some people on that, it would be. We could get this thing so that we had a sanitized version of TikTok here in the United States.
Well, what occurred to me reading this article is I thought, well, maybe the Japanese are finally up to giving this up because they have enough data. They've got, all right, they know what 170 million Americans are thinking, they figured it out. All right, we're good. Let the thing go. Okay, I mean, seriously, it's
Well,
been running how long? 7 years? I don't know.
yeah, well, I'm a fatalist or a real. I don't know what the word is, but I ran a public company, and the Washington Post would publish my salary and income and all my compensation every May in what they called their business leader edition, and they loved writing about how we were all overpaid, but they got into all this personal detail, and so I got kind of used to being abused and having people looking into our private stuff. And I think a lot of those fears are, another way to think about it, that horse is already out of the barn. They've got most of the information they need from all sorts of places. And I don't know that TikTok is a special case, but as I said, we've got some tech people that are pretty good, and I think we could shut that down if we choose to.
Yeah, is it? But all right, they're talking about, the Post is talking about your salary. Isn't that just kind of a communist way of looking at things? I mean, because the thing is, okay, I didn't do any research on Allied Capital, I didn't, but I'm assuming, like most CEOs, you were probably paid 0.1% of the income of the company or something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Maybe, yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And my salary went up some, but their earnings went up more.
Yeah,
So,
right, exactly, right. It's this whole thing about, and this really, really pissed me off when this judge said that Musk couldn't get paid his giant, like $56 billion bonus because she said, well, it's too much money. Well, forgive me, fuck you. It's like, who are you to say it's too much money? Not to mention the fact, like you said, he met all the markers. That was the deal. He wasn't even going to get paid if he didn't meet the markers, and he met them. That just really pisses me off. I could just,
Well, and who's he taking the money from? He's taking the money from people for whom he's made a fortune.
That's right. That's right. Everyone's making money, right? Everybody, and that's the thing. See, this is my complaint. So now I'm talking, and you're not talking about. I don't care. My complaint is that
you talk. I'm talking too much. Take a break.
People don't understand capitalism. It raises all boats. It's the only single system where that actually creates wealth. I mean, it's a famous thing about Margaret Thatcher saying, the problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. But the fact is that's actually true. It's like if you are running a system, no other system actually generates money. So if you're running any other system, sooner or later you're going to run out of money. And yeah, capitalism may be unfair to some people sometimes, but I've always said it's the best. It's the least flawed of all the systems, even though it is. You can make an argument it's highly flawed.
Well, everything's flawed, but
yeah,
everything. Tom Sowell's a great economist, and he said there is no one good thing, and everything's a trade-off. You want a little bit of this, you want a little bit. Everything in life is a trade-off. It's not. But you think about Xi in China. His father was a major functionary for Mao Zedong back in that day, and Xi loved his father, loved Mao even more, and his father went into exile for a while. Not exile, he was disappeared for a while, and then he came back and was okay. And Xi studied the communist system, and then, of course, as much as we like to think we defeated it, it basically collapsed because none of what they were doing worked. Communism failed. They couldn't keep the economy going, and it got worse and worse and worse, and then the whole thing collapsed. Well, what Xi's doing in China, they for a while they had Deng, and Deng was saying, we got to have capitalism, but we're going to make it with Chinese characteristics. But nevertheless, they created, I think there were, at one point, there were more billionaires in China than there were here in the United States.
Yeah, that seemed to be working, wasn't it? I mean,
it's working great.
Yeah.
And Xi's come in with ideological fervor, and he's shutting that all down. And for the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's become a terrible place if you're a capitalist. So he's actually inflicting the same thing on China that happened in the Soviet Union, and he hadn't made that connection. But yeah, I mean, it's the only thing that makes people wealthier. Everybody, it expands the pie rather than forcing us to cut it into slices.
Bill, do you think he's out? There's a lot of people are speculating that they're pushing him out.
Well, I don't. Well, no. here's the thing about China. We've got it. It's run by the Politburo, and there are 24 members of the Politburo, and he's expanded that. I think it used to be like 9 members, and he made it much bigger because paradoxically it was easier for him to control. And then there are all these committees that are part of all this. There's an economic committee, there's a political thought committee, there's a technology committee, and he made himself chairman of every single one of those committees. And he's I guess he's been in there 12 years. For the first 10 years or so, he was systematically making sure he had the right people in there. Right now, the Politburo is mainly old guys, 60 years old and older. They used to bring him in younger, and they're all Xi loyalists. And so I don't know where a coup would come from, because everybody owes their career to him right now. And that's the problem with all dictators, is that they've been getting him out because they've enriched all the people around him. I think the most likely scenario is he's not healthy. I mean, he's 70 years old, and he's a heavy smoker. I don't know if he's a heavy smoker, but he's certainly and so he's had health issues. There was rumors of a stroke, the rumors of an aneurysm, and he also has been less public. He didn't go to that BRICS meeting that they held in Rio de Janeiro this week, and so that was, some people took as a signal of him losing power. It may have just been his health.
Interesting. All right, this is the part for quiet reflection. Okay, I had a question. Now, what was it? It was, getting back to Art Laffer. So Laffer comes on your show. So I have to admit, I didn't see this. I didn't see it at all. But let's talk about the tariffs. I'm curious, what did you and Laffer talk about the tariffs on your show?
We wouldn't even dream that we'd have tariffs. I talked with Art. Was one of the early shows I did several years ago, and I've known him for a long time, a couple of our company events, and with tariffs, we didn't talk about them because it was just sort of assumed that tariffs were a bad idea, and that free trade was a better idea. And then I came along to sort of take a different view, because when you look at what China's doing, they were never really engaging in free trade. So there was, we needed to do something about that. And I guess there are 2 ways to look at tariffs. Trump really believes in them, and he thinks they're going to raise money, and he's going to level the playing field and reduce our trade deficit. The other is that he's using it as a bargaining chip to get people to come to the table, right, to fix things. I think he really believes in them, and it's sort of, I don't know how this shakes out in the end, but he's got a belief in them, and
well, I don't, if you study economics on a cursory level, which I do, tariffs are always supposed to be bad. And then yet I'm preparing for a show a couple of weeks ago, and I'm reading about the fact that William McKinley in 1900, he did basically the same thing Trump's doing, and it worked out fabulously. I'm thinking, well, if it was supposed to be bad then and it's supposed to be bad now, why does this work? It just gets me back to the fact there's a lot of quote unquote experts that don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think the biggest problem is the complexity. I mean, when we had the United States on one side of the Atlantic and Europe on the other, and we made our stuff here and they made their stuff there, we had a very identifiable thing you could slap a tariff on. Right now with the modern supply chain, most of the things that we've got, the iPhone in particular, the iPhone is mostly made in China. So I guess we're going to put tariffs on Apple shipping iPhones into the United States. Apple's a U.S. company, but then then there's all this pharmaceutical supply chain where there are things that are made, the primary ingredients are made maybe in China, and then it's assembled in India, and the complexity of the trade system just is absolutely mind-numbing. And so I don't even know how you do it. So I think it's a different world, and in the modern world, I think we've got to recognize these interrelationships. And
Do you think Trump balances this stuff in his head? I mean, I do. I'm starting to think more and more that he really does play the 4D chess that everybody kind of assumes he does, or accuses him of, or whatever you want to put it. Because I mean, when it comes, especially, I mean, he's always said, and he got elected, I think, at least in 16, because people assumed that economics was his wheelhouse, and that's always what he said. But I sometimes think that he actually does understand this shit. You know?
I think he understands it. I do think he plays 4D chess, and I also think he's got a. They said you walk into some people have been in the meetings G7 with him, and if he walks into the room, all of a sudden he's the leader in the room.
Right,
and
right.
He's been on the job now, if you consider the first term, over almost 10 years more, and so he knows all these countries, he knows the interrelationships. So yeah, I think he's playing a much deeper game, and I also think I was watching the other day. I think he's got this vision of the world of being. You can make a peaceful world if you make everything a commercial society. If you get countries thinking about what they're producing and they're doing business with each other, and if you've got everybody interrelated, we're doing, data centers in Dubai and things like that, and
yeah,
you get us all interconnected, and we're all making money. It doesn't leave a lot of room for going to war.
Right.
And I think that's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you agree with that? Because I do.
I do.
Yeah, I do too. I know.
People laughed at it, but I thought the idea of turning Gaza into a luxury resort. I know it sounds brutal, but that if you could do that and turn that into something that everybody liked where they wanted to be, and also provided lots of jobs, and you had Arabs making money with their stake in the hotels or whatever. I mean, I think it's a good outcome. I mean, one of the things do not do very well, except for the sophisticated ones like the Saudis and some of the Arab Emirates, is they don't do business very well. They don't build organizations, and I think if we could give them let them capture the capitalist bug, we'd see a lot more peace in the Middle East.
Well, there's a flip side of that too. So I have a lot of people on the show talking about AI. I'm a computer programmer myself. The people don't know you ask people the gamut. Some people think AI will end up killing all of us. Some people think it's not going to be that big a deal. I had a guy on last night named Jeff Dornick, and him and I were talking about this. And the one thing that I mentioned about the fact that, I personally think, and also I'm actually curious on you having run a large corporation, I'm curious on your thought on this too. The fact that I think realistically, the biggest problem is, I think in the next 10, 20 years, AI is going to put an enormous number of people out of work. And unlike in previous generations where there was, and I know there's a term for this in economics, is basically a labor transference. The classic example was brought up by Barack Obama. ATMs put bank tellers out of business, but you still need people to repair the ATMs. So therefore, even though jobs change, the amount of people actually employed does not, really, more or less. This is the first time in human history where I think you have a technology that's actually going to replace people. And so what I was telling Dornick, and he agreed with me about the scariest part about this, if you have 50% of the country unemployed, you know what unemployed people do? Crime, because they're bored. So I mean, this is it's the counter to what's exactly you're saying. If politics involves a commercial environment and people are doing stuff, they're literally too occupied to actually do nefarious shit.
And in a way, that's what Trump's trying to do with, quote, bringing manufacturing back. I don't think we're going to be able to go home to that again. But there are other kinds of jobs that we can create in this country. I don't know. I've heard. I wish I could remember it. There was a long explanation about how if you why driverless taxis would create more jobs rather than less, and I'm not sure, unless it's maybe to handle the crash repairs, the crash cleanup. Yeah, it's a big risk. I've got an investment in a small. We hope it'll be huge at one point. A computer chip hardware company that we hope to compete with NVIDIA if we can. And the guy that's running it.
You froze. Bill, can you hear me? Our connection went. Okay, you're back. I'm sorry, we missed you there for a few seconds. Yeah.
I'm pretty
Now I
involved in
can't
the
hear you.
industry.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, the short answer is there are the people that are in the business that are worried about the social fallout from what we're doing. And I guess where I come out is that the advances we get from the productivity will eventually, the economic theory is you become more productive, you can lower prices on everything, and so it's more affordable for people to live, even if they don't have the big job they used to have. I don't know what I think about that. That could be just BS, but it's. I think on balance, my vote is to go forward with it, but get people, and that's why I like the fact that Trump has attracted people from the tech community to DC, get some tech savvy people to help figure out how we can help see that these new jobs do get created. But we've never been able to predict what jobs are. The difference is that if you think about the transition from farms to factories, when people move there, that took 100 years.
Yeah.
This could take 3.
Right. Well, but you look at the history of technology, every single major innovation has taken less and less time to assimilate to the public.
Yeah.
Radio took 50 years. Television took, 2025. The internet took maybe 10 or 20. Your iPhone. I was just talking about this last night on the show. People, you haven't even had your iPhone for 20 years, Now, the reason I brought that up is because I'm thinking about people are talking about the fact that people from other planets are flying here. And people say, well, that technology's impossible. And I say, well, you take your iPhone that you've had for 20 years and then you put that out 10,000 more years and let's see what you can do. God, and do you know who Ray Kurzweil is? You ever heard of him?
Sure. Yeah. The fork turning.
Yeah. So he's talking about the singularity, which would be when the technology, there's no plateau to innovation. And he said that's going to happen around 2045, and he's probably right. And that's going to change society because basically no one's going to be able to rest, basically, everywhere what we would consider rest, So
I'm not sure I understand that. What do you mean won't rest?
His definition of the singularity is that technology comes in waves and then plateaus. So, and that over the course of time, the last 20 years, those plateaus have gotten shorter to shorter, where he says around 2025, they will no longer exist. We will be in a continuous state of innovation, So there'll be no time for you to get your head around the fact that there's the Apple is a new gizmo, It's just going to happen, and then another gizmo is going to come along right away, and it's going to fundamentally change society because people have to fundamentally change the way they think about stuff. That's his contention.
Well, the fear is who owns this stuff? Who owns the social media? Who owns the AI? And who's directing it? I think you probably, if you use it a lot, I use it a lot, it's biased. If you ask Claude, which is run by a couple who are pretty hardcore on the left, if you ask Claude an economic question, it'll give you an answer that Karl Marx would have liked. But what you can do with that is you can say, Claude, no, that's not right. You're giving me only one side of the argument. Tell me what Friedrich Hayek and the Austrians would say about this, or better yet, Milton Friedman. Give me an answer that Milton Friedman would give me. And you know what? It does it.
Uh-huh.
But but who's going to own these platforms? I think that's the scariest part. And the funny thing is, they're the AI people like David Sachs, the free market ones. And I guess put myself more or less on that side. Tend to think we'll sort it out somehow. And the ones that are saying no, we got to regulate it tend to be on the left. And it tends to put us back into where we were with Obama, when they're using media companies to censor speech and to kick people off the platforms. But it's I don't know. So what do you think? Do you think it's going to? I mean, if you've got a tech background, where's this stop? Who owns it?
I don't know. That's the reason I ask a lot of questions. I have people on the show and ask a lot of questions.
That's why I do my show too, so I can get somebody on that somebody else could take it.
That's right. Like, tell me stuff because I don't know. All right, you're gonna laugh at me. The only thing I really know for certain is that the U.S. government has crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft. I know that for certain. So that's basically the only thing I know, and the only thing on the show I pretend to know. So
they have a spacecraft that crashed, and they've got the remains somewhere in a warehouse.
Yeah, they have that stuff. Yes, they do. I can't tell you
Here's
how.
my question for you then: why is it that it seems like only the government has these things, and somehow nobody who's not in government has got their own crash results, or hasn't had the kind of photographic evidence of any of this? It seems weird to me that it's only the federal government. Part
of that, the primary answer to that question is that the government, this would be the military, is really good at retrieving this stuff really quickly. They have had standing, basically secret division that goes out, and when they hear about a crash, and they usually know because of radar data when's stuff to happen, they have people there not only in hours, sometimes in minutes. So that's the primary answer to your question. And then the other thing is they're farming this stuff out to private corporations so that they can get around the Freedom of Information Act, and that works. So it's not, there's the latest thing that come out right now about the fact that I don't know if you've heard this, those Tic Tac things that the Navy saw, off San Diego, that those are actually manufactured by Lockheed Martin. And I've been saying that for the last couple of years, that those are ours. But we have them because they're crashed extraterrestrial technology. They reverse engineer it. And now it's coming out that those things actually are ours. And then the question is, well, if we can fly stuff without wings, how come the public isn't benefiting from this? And that's the big problem.
I'm not sure I understand that. You mean that they've taken the crash remains and then reverse engineered it to create, we've replicated their technology, and now we're manufacturing that? Or Lockheed Martin's.
Right. We've replicated part of it anyway, enough to figure out the anti-gravity part. Yeah.
Well, why don't we know about why are we such delicate private citizens that only some government person can know about it, and we're too sensitive to know? Why are we being protected from this knowledge?
That's the $64,000 question. And now it's really funny. Now you're interviewing me, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's okay.
You sound like you know something, and I don't know.
Like I said, this is the only thing I know, so that's why I'm talking about it. No. So the big question is, at first, the secrecy around this involves national security and having an advantage over our adversaries. But nobody really has figured out how to benefit this and also make this stuff available to the public. So from what I understand, my contact at the Pentagon passed away, unfortunately. So I've kind of been the last few months I've been out of it. But from what I understand, there is a big, huge struggle within the Pentagon on how to deal with this. Because you're right. On the one hand, here's technology that can benefit not just Americans, but mankind in general. On the other hand, we're keeping it secret, so we have an advantage over our adversaries. And so what do you do? And I got to admit, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't.
Well, I hope you're right that I think it's exciting. I think it'd be really interesting to understand what other civilizations have developed. I wish they'd let us know more, because we would all learn a lot. And you think about it, you look at the way innovation works. If you put that technology not just in the hands of Lockheed, but all the other really smart kids in the tech business, they could come up with all sorts of things, and
Yeah.
it could really advance the ball.
Right. Well, not only that, it's like there's also the management of energy too. I mean, I mean, and I don't have to tell you this. I mean, AI is burning up an enormous amount of electricity, and it's going to continue to do so. We have no real choice at this point other than to build a bunch more nuclear power plants, and that's all there is to it. There's going to be a resurgence on this because we'll have to have them. I mean, you were talking about the Chinese and their coal plants. I don't know if we could even build enough coal plants to even keep up. The only real solution here is nuclear energy at the present time.
I agree. Although I'm a member of a group called the CO2 Coalition, and our view is that CO2 is net beneficial. And,
well, yeah,
and a greener, warmer planet is a better planet.
I think I should join your group there. I think that's because I've been.
I wish you would. I wish you would. And there's some great people to interview. If you could talk to Will Happer, who's our genius leader who's a physics professor at Princeton, and he knows this stuff cold.
Yeah, I interviewed Patrick Moore, the former.
I saw that he's a member.
Yeah, and that's been the highest rated show I've done here so far. And yeah, he's like, he quit Greenpeace because he couldn't buy the climate stuff. He's gonna do it. And he put out a fantastic book, which he said, I mean, God bless him, he's a brilliant SOB. He said, well, I've simplified it. Well, yeah, okay, relatively speaking, at least there's no formulas in it, but still, it's a pretty dense read, but he really explains how.
Well, the CO2 Coalition, I'll put you in touch. We'll make that happen, because they put out very easy to understand material. That's really their purpose, is to take the so-called complicated science and make it available. And they've got books they're putting in elementary school now.
I lost you there. What was the last thing you said? What was that?
Well, the CO2 Coalition's producing material that are aimed at elementary school kids.
Good.
So the science can be explained in a lot simpler ways than it has been. So let's make that happen. Because the thing, there's some big things that people don't know. CO2 levels now are almost at their lowest levels, in millions of years, or hundreds of thousands of years.
That's right.
And that's a bad thing. CO2 levels fall below a certain number, and we were close to it, I think, 75, 100 years ago. Life starts disappearing.
That's right. It expires.
Plant and animal life disappears.
The parrot
ironic, we've got the position, ironically, that the industrialization, which produced CO2 emissions, actually helped bring us back.
I found one.
Try telling that to a Harvard professor.
I'm serious. Offline. I got to talk to you about this. I actually want to join your group. I really do, because
we'll make it happen.
I've been preaching this forever, so it's like, this is a good thing. I didn't realize this group existed. But yeah, people.
They're mostly all scientists, and here's another interesting thing. They're all most of them are in their 70s and older, and the reason is, if you take a contrary view on climate science, you can't get a job.
That's right.
You can't get a grant. You can't get government funding. You can't survive if you've got a contrary view. And so most of these are retired scientists who now can allowed to think for themselves.
I'm going to tell you a story that I've told on this show several times. About 12, 14 years ago, I'm at a Christmas party of a very large scientific organization. Can't tell you what the organization was. Can't tell you why I was there. But I'm there, and there's a whole bunch of scientists. It's a Christmas party. Everybody's getting sloshed, right? I'm at the bar with one of the premier climatologists in the United States, a college professor, and him and I were drinking. And I said to him, I said, "Professor, tell me about climate change." And he slams his drink down in the bar and says, "Yeah, I'll tell you about climate change. Climate change is complete, utter bullshit." And he launched into this 20-minute monologue. But he said And unfortunately, I can't remember it all because I'm kind of fuzzy at this point. But he said the same thing you did. Said we have to acknowledge this, otherwise we can't get any money for our work. And he says it's complete utter crap, you know. And so yeah, and that kind of started my. I mean, I know enough about science at that time. I was starting to question this, and then I heard this from him, and then I went down the rabbit hole. You know, it's like, yeah, okay, but yeah, it was actually quite humorous, but yeah, it's serious. You know, he can't get any money unless he says, you know, acknowledges climate change. Well, bullshit.
And there's more money, and there's also that's the money really explains a whole lot of this. I mean, places like Goldman Sachs have got all this climate, all the climate stuff they finance, and then the subsidies out of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really the Green New Deal. Or, you know, there's trillions of dollars being made by people, and it's people. I mean, as you think about it, we used to have big Maryland from the lobbying dollars. Well, they're now tearing down these big land mansions, and they're building even bigger ones because of all the cash that's going to climate. And good. So let's enlist, you know, because I think you could do some shows on it, and it would be really
I'd love
really
to.
beneficial.
I absolutely love to. I would love to do that. What's in the future for you here? What do you got? Like, you're going to continue with your show, or you working on something you want to talk about? Or
well, the future for me is always sort of. I was talking with my assistant this morning because I stopped the show for a few months to try to catch a breath and figure out what I wanted to do. And we've been trying to narrow it down. And I keep, you know, my AJ Rice, I think you've had him on. He helps me with some of this. And I started out with my show, and it was going to be about, and I said, well, all I'm really interested in is a show with interesting people about interesting things. And that was 6 or 7 years ago. And then I tried to get more niche, you know, it's going to be finance, or it's going to be, you know, climate, or it's going to be China or something like that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to focus on one thing. I want to talk to everybody about everything.
That's what I decided to do. My niche is not having a niche. That's what I decided.
Yeah, there you go.
I have to credit my wife in helping me focus this. She said, you know, people like talking to you, and I like learning stuff. So yeah, I've decided and somebody I'm associated with said, no, you're Larry King. Just talk to everybody. And yeah, that's what I've decided to do. You know, so I don't know if that helps.
Well, you're good at it, and I think I love this format of kind of just having a conversation as opposed to, you know, you get on some of these shows and the guy's got his clipboard and 12 questions, and you know, first question, and then there's no flow. You don't learn anything when that.
Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation reminds me of some chick I knew in the debate club in high school. That's, you know, it's like, we're gonna check off questions, and okay, God bless you, girl. That's terrific. You just go to town. You know, it's like no one's learning anything. I don't know. I have no idea, but you know, it's like.
Well, let me shift gears a little bit. We talked about secrecy in the UFO world, although they don't call it that anymore. The secrecy about this Epstein thing really, I think, could blow up.
Oh, but you know, this is, I mean, I'm just following through the news this morning. There's a lot of people who think this could bring down parts of the Trump administration. I mean, yeah.
I'm in that camp. I think this is really serious, that they're trying to finesse it this way. And Bongino and Patel and made a fortune doing podcasts talking about the evil things that the Biden administration was doing and the stuff they were hiding. And Exhibit A was always the Epstein list, and who was involved in all that, and whether Epstein was involved with the Israelis, and why did they announce this list thing the same day that Bibi's in town talking with Trump. I mean, there's all this murky stuff, and all the way that Epstein got his money from this billionaire and that billionaire. I mean, that story has not been told, and we don't have a list. Well, I used to have, back in my bad old days as a CEO of a public company, we had, hold drum roll, a jet. and we had to give them the names of the passengers that we would fly with. Why can't the FBI get a simple passenger list? It doesn't need to be It doesn't
Well,
need to
you
be.
you would know about this better than me, but from what I've heard of conflicting stories on this about the fact that nobody really knows where Epstein even got his money. That there seems to be no records of him trading. It's like that all the all that he made his money trading stocks, but there's no records of any stock trades. It's like like this guy just kind of came out of nowhere, is insanely rich, and then I mean, the theory I've heard is that he was actually a CIA operative and was actually blackmailing people.
And maybe Israeli operative as well. When
Right.
we have it is out there that he got 170 million from Leslie Wexner, who founded the Gap, and that was supposed to be for tax advice. And he got something like 200 million from Leon Black, who's one of the shrewdest financiers on the planet, for financial advice. Well, these guys don't need to pay anybody $500 million for advice. I mean, it's that there's something else going on there. And
there is. Yeah.
So we don't know, and they're not telling us. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to put Trump in, so we could figure out. We don't want. We have a right to know this, and if it really feels like they're holding back for.
I'm going to float an idea by you that maybe it occurred to the Trump administration that there's so many prominent politicians of both sides on these lists that they came to the conclusion that would literally destroy the government if this got out. I thought of that. I had a thought.
That's kind of that's my one of the things I did before I came on. I thought we might talk about this. Was I asked ChatGPT or Grok or one of them? I said, "What's the rumor mill telling us about Epstein and what's going on?" And the explanation I thought made the most sense was what you just said, which is that it's so bad that it would bring everything down, and they can't afford to let that happen.
Right.
But if that's true, then a lot of this stuff we're dealing with is a lot scummier than we ever imagined.
You're right. So, I think the American.
It's worse than we thought.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I don't like these interviews that go longer than an hour because
that's smart. People won't listen more than an hour.
No, that's right. Nobody with a real life wants to spend more time doing that. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But hopefully we'll talk again. I do want to talk to you offline about joining your little CO2 group. I want to talk to you.
Okay, we will do that. And then maybe when I start my show up again, which probably I'm threatening to do in the next month or two, I'll get you on, and then I can get you to answer all the questions.
Like I said, I don't know anything, but that's fine. Okay.
All right. Well, this is great. I've really enjoyed it. So
I have too.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You take care. All right. We'll talk to you soon. That was Bill Walton. Fascinating guy. God, a lot of people have done a lot of things, It's really amazing. And the stuff about Epstein at the end, I don't know what's going on here, but I mean, none of this makes sense. So I don't know if we'll ever find out. It's like the JFK assassination. Shit dribbles out here and there. The one thing we know about that now, basically we know for certain, it's been verified now that Lee Harvey Oswald was an asset working for the CIA and the FBI. We know that. So based on everything I've been able to figure out, and I've been studying the damn thing for 30 years, he was involved in the assassination in some way. I mean, the thing is, people say, well, he was one of the shooters at the very least. No, there's a good possibility he wasn't even one of the shooters, but he was definitely involved. He's not innocent here at all. I've always ascribed to the theory, or I guess it's not a theory. James Files, he says he knows because he said he was the guy on the grassy knoll that actually pulled the trigger and blew Kennedy's head off. And there's several people have claimed to be that. The only thing is, and without getting into it here, there's some physical evidence to indicate that it was Files. So that's the reason I kind of buy his story. And his story is that the CIA planned this, and the CIA hired the Chicago mob, which he worked, to carry it out because, and apparently this is still true to this day. Technically, the CIA is not supposed to work on American soil. They're foreign, operations only. And so to do dirty work, they always hired the mob, and that makes total sense. So, because I understand that's still true, more or less. But Files said that they hired the Chicago mob to do it. His boss, Chuck Nicoletti, dragged him to Dallas and put him on. There was a team of 3 people, or 3 shooters anyway. Now, there might have been more people involved. That's where Oswald comes in. But he says that at the last minute, the CIA got cold feet and called it off. And that his boss, Chuck Nicoletti, very famously said, "Fuck it, we're going ahead anyway." Because, the mob was more than happy to off Kennedy because they hated his guts. Because they supported him, especially in Chicago. They supported him for president. And then Kennedy turned, well, not only that, they probably rigged the election for him. Because this is a known fact now, too. This is pretty much accepted by historians that John Kennedy's father, Joseph Kennedy, bribed the officials in Cook County, Illinois, which is the city of Chicago, to tip the election results. And that election was so close. It's still one of the closest elections in American history. Tipping Chicago tipped Illinois, and tipping Illinois tipped the election. And so, supposedly, Kennedy got the Chicago mob to do that for him. So they did the family a favor, and then as soon as Kennedy got elected, he got in there and sicked his brother, the attorney general, on them, and they were just livid about that. So they were more than happy to do it. So yeah, so and that makes sense too, because I suppose you can understand why, if you're working for the CIA, you might have had a come to Jesus moment thinking, "Holy shit, we can't kill the president. That's like wrong." So they said, "No, we're calling it off." And Chicago mob said, "No, we're not. Screw you. We don't need the money." So, I think what Files says, I think he got paid $25,000 to do that, which is roughly $250,000 now, in adjusted for inflation, roughly at least 200,000 for sure. Any rate, yeah. So that's well, we still don't know about that. So, like I said, supposedly, okay, there was 3 shooters in the plaza, but the Oswald probably wasn't one of them, but he was in the building and he helped arrange for this. And there's a good possibility, probably, he only started working there a month ahead of time, that they arranged for him to work there so that he could be in the building when this happened. It's just, it says nobody knows. That's the problem. I will never figure this out. I have my theory, is, goes along with a lot of other people's, but Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know. You got, let's say a third of Congress was involved in this. You got a whole bunch of guys who are having sex with teenage girls, underage girls. And okay, there's 535 members of Congress, 435 in the House and 100 in the Senate. Let's say all of a sudden you had to take out a third of them. What the hell? What would happen? I don't know. It's crazy, folks. So tomorrow night, we got going on here. It's our 250 show tomorrow night. By the way, I do want to mention this too. You'll notice in that interview we just played, my face is all washed out, and I just want to point out, here we are 249 shows into this. We've been using the same technology to broadcast the show the entire time, although we've upgraded it greatly since we started. I mean, we have professional lighting here. We had some when we started. It's better now. It's all computer controlled. all that sort of stuff. The green screen behind me is now virtual. It's done. We do it with NVIDIA AI chips. We don't do an actual. When we started, we had an actual green screen back there. So today in our little studio, we have a window here. It's a nice day. It's a nice sunny day in Minneapolis. I thought I'd leave the window open. Not I couldn't leave it open because of the sound, but actually I did not shut the shades. And I thought, well, it's not going to make that much difference. And I was wrong. So we learn as we go. 245, 49 goddamn shows later into this, and I'm still figuring this out. So I know now what else not to do. It's unbelievable. Oh well. Tomorrow, our 250th show, Tim Conaway's here. Our old friend Tim Conaway. He's the former executive editor of Hustler magazine. He was the editor of Hustler magazine in its heyday for 15 years from the 1980s and 90s. He does a devastating Larry Flint impression. He worked for Larry. So, yeah, he's had a pretty fascinating life. Thursday, our friend Larry Newman, Bigfoot investigator and bail bondsman extraordinaire. He's going to come by and we're going to shoot the shit with him. So I generally don't like to do, like I said at the top of the show, I don't like to put two regulars on in a row or even in the same week for that matter. But we had Mr. Gary Gullis, the economist he canceled. So we're going to have him on. I think it's Wednesday the 30th, if I'm right, of this month. And so Larry's coming on at the last minute. That's Thursday. I'm taking next Monday off for a family event. Next Tuesday, that's the 11th. Spencer Morrison, he's the author of Reshore, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. He's also the editor-in-chief of the National Economics Editorial. Excuse me. This is fascinating because we were talking with Jeff Tornick last night about this. It appears that the American economic community is coming around to what Trump is trying to do with the tariffs. And as I said, I found out just like last week that in 1900, 125 years ago, it was actually in 1900. It's not an estimation. William McKinley was president, and he did the same thing. He decided to up tariffs in the United States to negotiate with our trading partners, and it worked like a charm. It worked. And I didn't know that because if you listen to the tariff, anybody in theoretical economics will tell you that this shouldn't work. But, theory and practice are two different things. So it'll be interesting to talk to him about that. That's next Tuesday. That's a week from tonight. Wednesday the 16th. I'm sorry. Let me see. Hold on. I can't type. I think that's wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. Spencer Morrison's coming on the 15th. That's where I'm wrong here. Not the 11th. He's coming on the 15th. Wednesday the 16th, Shaz Khan. He's written a book called The Ultimate Vaccine Timeline. We're going to talk about vaccines with him. He's going to talk about why they're good, why they're bad, what's good about them, what's bad about them, what happened with COVID. That's the real reason I'm having him on. I want to know about that. We want to know about what happened during COVID. That's next Wednesday. Thursday the 17th, Keith Gross is coming on. He's a legal analyst and former assistant state attorney general for the state of Florida. And he's written a book called Dirt Roads to Runways, Defending the American Dream for the Next Generation. So that should be interesting. And we're going to take calls tomorrow night and Thursday night. At this point now, I'm going to announce this ahead of time. We're going to plan out the days we're taking calls. The other thing I'm thinking, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I've been thinking about this the last couple days. I think we're going to start running reruns on Friday night. I mean, we've always advertised this show Monday through Thursday, and that's what we've done. We've done, I think in 250 shows, I think we've done 3 of them on Fridays, maybe. Just because we had guests and what the hell, Now, my goal is that I thought I was going to start this week, but we're not. Matter of fact, now we're not even close to starting it. That at some point we would do selected on selected Fridays. That would mean if I have the time available, that we would actually do a show on TikTok only, because TikTok is perfect. On TikTok, you can call in. You don't need a telephone number. You know, if you're on TikTok and if you're logged in, you can actually just call into a live broadcast. And I thought, well, this is fantastic, and people do that. So I thought we would do a TikTok only show, and we might do that. Now I think we'll start after Labor Day, is what I'm thinking. But in the meantime, especially we're not going to do that every week. Uh, I think we'll start running reruns on Fridays. The reruns have been well received. Most of them, I think we've probably run 6 or 8 of them so far. Have the viewership has been almost high as for the originals, so that's good. I think that's a good thing. So I think we're gonna start doing that. We might start doing that this week even on Friday. So yeah, that's cool. Anyway, we're gonna start. Like I said, we're going to start announcing ahead of time the days we're going to open the phone lines. So we're going to do that both tomorrow night and Thursday night. We're going to open phone lines for open. You guys can call in. You can talk to Conaway and ask him about what it's like. What it's like dealing with the almost naked chicks on a on a daily basis, and you can talk to Newman, ask him what's it like to deal with almost naked Bigfoot on a daily basis. Sounds good, huh? I want to thank you first for watching. I want to thank Bill Walton for coming on. Fascinating guy, terrific interview. I'm blessed to be able to talk to all these people. It's one of the coolest things about doing this. And so now tomorrow night and Thursday night, I can talk to you too. You call in. The number is 325 call Jim. That's 325-225-5546. And you can call the number 24 hours a day. If we're not broadcasting live, you can leave a message. So and you can do that, and I'll play those messages back. I've done that before. I'm threatening you, in other words. So entertain me, damn it. Yeah, thanks to Bill Walton. Thanks to you folks. Thanks to you. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you tomorrow night. We'll see you, Tim Conaway. Take care, everybody.